The group chat is exploding. Your colleague has a flag on his desk. Someone just knocked on your door asking if you're watching tonight. And somewhere inside you, there's nothing. No excitement, no anticipation, not even mild curiosity. Just the quiet, slightly uncomfortable feeling of being the only person in the room who doesn't feel what everyone else seems to feel. You don't say it out loud, but the thought is there. What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. But there's something genuinely fascinating going on inside your brain. And psychology has a lot to say about it. To understand why you don't feel it, you first need to understand why everyone else does. When the World Cup happens, it doesn't just trigger sports excitement. It activates something far more primitive. Psychologists call it social identity theory, the idea that humans don't just have a personal identity, they have a group identity. And that group identity produces real, measurable emotion. When a country's team scores, the brain of a supporter doesn't just register that they won, it registers we won. The striatum, the brain's reward center, actually fires as if they personally achieved something. That's not enthusiasm, that's tribal neuroscience. And for billions of people, that feeling is powerful, real, and deeply satisfying. But here's what nobody talks about. That tribal response isn't equally distributed. And the people it affects least aren't broken. They're wired differently in ways that psychology finds genuinely interesting. First, your identity doesn't attach to groups the way others does. Social identity theory also tells us that for the tribal response to activate, you first have to internalize the group. You have to feel that the team represents you. Some people never make that internalization, not because they're cold or antisocial, but because their sense of self is built differently. It's constructed around individual values, personal achievements, private interests, not flags, not jerseys, not collective outcomes. When you don't feel the World Cup, you're not missing excitement. You're simply not wired to outsource your identity to a scoreline. Second, you process social pressure differently. There's a phenomenon in psychology called normative social influence. It explains why people conform, not because they genuinely agree, but because the social cost of standing apart feels too high. The World Cup is one of the largest normative pressure events on the planet. Billions of people talking about the same thing, at the same time, with the same emotional register. Most people feel this pressure and shift toward it instinctively. But some people, and this is well documented, have lower susceptibility to normative influence. They don't feel the social pull the way others do. They're not being stubborn. Their brain simply doesn't weigh what everyone else is doing as heavily when deciding what they should care about. In other words, you're harder to socially program. Third, your emotional bandwidth is genuinely occupied. Psychology has a concept called attentional bandwidth. The idea is simple. The brain has limited emotional capacity. And what gets real emotional investment is whatever the brain has already prioritized. If your attention is genuinely absorbed by a project you care about, a relationship you're working on, a goal that keeps you awake at night, there is literally less cognitive space available for a tournament happening on a screen. This isn't indifference. It's evidence that something else already matters deeply to you. The people most emotionally absent from the World Cup are often the most emotionally present somewhere else. Here's the reframe most people never get. We treat not caring about the World Cup as a social deficit, like you're missing something everyone else has, but psychologically it might be the opposite. The ability to remain emotionally unmoved when the entire world is telling you how to feel, that's not numbness. That's psychological autonomy. It's the same quality that helps certain people avoid panic during market crashes, stay calm when everyone around them is catastrophizing, and make decisions based on their own values instead of social momentum. The World Cup just happens to be a relatively harmless stage where this quality shows up clearly. You're not the person who doesn't care. You're the person whose attention can't be rented by a crowd. Most people watching this video right now found it because the whole world was talking about football and they felt nothing, and they quietly opened YouTube to figure out why. That curiosity, that need to understand yourself rather than just follow what everyone else is feeling, that's exactly why this channel exists. If you want to keep understanding the psychology behind the way you think, feel, and see the world differently from most people around you, subscribe to Psychology Echo. Not because everyone else is, but because you actually want to.